Welcome to the Kill Count, where we tally up the victims in all our favorite horror movies. I'm James A. Janice, and today we're looking at Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. Scary Stories is based on the children's books of the same name released between 1981 and 1991. These three collections of short horror stories were written by Alvin Schwartz and memorably illustrated by Stephen Gammell. Seeing Gammell's creepy-ass charcoal and ink artwork is one of my earliest horror-related memories, as I'm sure it is also for many other people around my age. In fact, the more I think about it, the more likely it is that Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark helped prime baby James to become the horror-obsessed man James of today. Cause I'm a man! That's why I like that this movie's PG-13. Not every horror movie has to be an over-the-top gore fest or a horrifying brain breaker. We also need good stuff for children, you know, to hook them while they're young. I think Scary Stories succeeds, just like Amblin movies did in the 80s, as a gateway horror flick for kids and the more faint-hearted among us, even if it does feel a little sluggish between all the scenes with monsters. Thankfully though, the team behind this movie was faithful to the original Gammell drawings that, let's be real, made the book's classics. It helps that producer Guillermo del Toro is a personal fan of the artwork, and even acquired some of it in the most Guillermo del Toro way possible.
Turned out he actually owned some of the original art. Guillermo was like, oh yeah, I bought 10 of them at a store, in the New Line building from under Tim Burton's nose, as it happened.
Del Toro and director Andre Overdahl worked with talented artists and sculptors to transfer these nightmare-inducing illustrations into full-fledged 3D figures, a task they did not take lightly.
The most challenging aspect of translating Gammell's drawings from the books to real life is people's expectations. Because these adults now, read these books as children. So what you're basically creating for them or recreating for them is an old family member that they've never met.
Overdahl employed these creatures in suspenseful and well-directed set pieces, which are made even better since they involve well-acted and likable kid characters. But just because they're kid characters doesn't mean they can't get murdered. So let's see how many bite the big one and get to the kills. The movie begins in 1968 in Mill Valley, Pennsylvania. And in case you weren't sure it was 1968, we've got Nixon-Humphrey posters with political graffiti on them, kids signing up to die overseas in a televised war, and some psychedelic Donovan on the soundtrack.
Must be the season of the witch.
Oh, and also some small-town skepticism of this not-white stranger from out of town, a kid named Ramon. Today is Halloween, and some walkie-talkie plans are made between friends Stella, Augie, and Chuck, who's about to use that net right there to go toilet fishing. Here's a nice piece of shit. It's their last year trick-or-treating together before they're too old to do it, so they've all arranged to wear their best costumes. Spooky Witch, an actual Spider-Man, and David Bowie from the Ashes to Ashes music video. These unpopular dorky kids are using Chuck's toilet treats to trick leather jacket bully Tommy Milner and his crew, whose attempts to steal their candy yields them a different chocolate prize.
Oh, it's old man! Oh, no.
The kids follow up on stage one of their prank with a whole bunch of eggs and a flaming bag of shit.
Now for the coup d'etat.
Don't put it out with your boots, Tommy! He sees that it's poop again and crashes his car, which sends the nerds running away with Tommy and his bros in hot pursuit. They chase them into the drive-in theater, where Stella comes across Ramon in his car and asks the stranger for sanctuary. Chuck and Augie hop in too. Ramon and Stella strike up a friendship over their shared love of the brand new horror flick on the screen, Night of the Living Dead. But don't get too comfy there, kids, cause they're coming to get you, Stella. And by they, I mean Tommy and his pals. I'd be careful of that guy if I were you, Ramon. He'll shoot your eye out. The bullies are chased off by a theater employee, and after some clunky character backstory about absentee moms, oh that's sad, Stella stifles her tears and says they've still got time to celebrate Halloween. To a haunted house we go. Or I'm sorry, make that a haunted mansion. Just hold the hat goes. This wicked-looking Victorian building was once home to the Bellows family, Old Town founders who owned the titular mill of Mill Valley. In real life, though, the Bellows Mansion was played by the Fairbanks House in Petrolia, Ontario, which was built way back in the 1890s. Very cool and very fitting for this film.
We went inside there and we found that the inside was as fantastical as the outside. It's like the house was created to be a haunted house in a movie.
Inside, Chuck and Augie goof around and run off tee-heeing, which leaves Stella free to tell Ramon about the Bellows family and their unfortunate daughter. Sarah Bellows was hidden away inside the house by her family, and she passed the time by telling the neighborhood kids scary stories through the walls. The kids who came around would often die on their way back home, so a mob formed in town to get revenge on Sarah, but they were too late by the time they arrived at the house.
She'd already hung herself.
Oh, excuse me, it's actually hanged herself. Hanged is the past participle when you're talking about the, you know. Upstairs, Chuck hides from Augie in a wardrobe that's apparently straight out of About Time, since all of a sudden, he's looking into the past, where there's a scary-ass dog and a creepy old lady looking towards him. It scares him back to the present, where he immediately tells Augie it's time to go. Smart kid. Too bad Stella and Ramon have found a hidden sliding cabinet that leads into a secret part of the house. And while they don't find a dude banging out Morse code with his head down there, they do find Sarah Bellows' old room. After they call Chuck and Augie into it, Stella starts messing with all sorts of shit. You're lucky this ain't Cabin in the Woods, little girl, because if it were, she'd be well on her way to summoning Sarah Bellows after finding her book of scary stories, purportedly written in children's blood. Well, it's right about now that troublemaker Tommy Milner catches up with our ragtag gang. He locks them in the basement against the protestations of his date Ruth, who happens to be Chuck's sister. We saw her earlier when she had caught him poop fishing, but he told her not to tell him his business, devil woman. When she keeps telling Tommy to stop, he instead throws her in the basement too, then leaves all these kids to the spiders and cobwebs. Stella doesn't seem too bothered though, because she's got other dumb ideas on her mind.
Sarah Bellows, tell me a story. Tell me a story.
Great, Sarah Bellows is summoned now. You summoned to go, Stella. Are you proud of yourself? Sarah's spirit unlocks them from her room and they leave, happy to be free. At least happy until Ramon finds his car vandalized in a hate crime. That damn troublemaker Tommy Milner, I tell you what. Because Ramon's a drifter who's been living in his car, Stella offers him a sofa in her basement to sleep on. They set up this Stranger Things situation while Stella's dad Roy is asleep in his dad chair. You really gonna try to sneak a plan like that past the guy who figured out who Walter White was? Good luck! Ramon settles into the house's sublayer, while upstairs in her room, Stella reads through Sarah's stories and enjoys the world's most unfairly maligned candy. She discovers that there's an unwritten story with the title of Harold, and fresh off the press it is. We see that the words on the page match Tommy Milner's current actions, as he goes about doing some late-night family farm business. He works under the watchful eye of the Milner family scarecrow, Harold, who Tommy has never been real nice to. But tonight is the night that Harold will get his revenge. Before you can say in the tall grass, space isn't making all that much sense. And next thing you know, Harold's gone from his post. Tommy finds Harold hanging out in a different space, which is scary, but hey, at least he's still stuck on that pole, right? Oh shit, never mind. He's hauling ass towards Tommy, even with that big old hole in his belly. That's what we call a motivational story there, folks. Harold, like most of this movie's monsters, was based directly on the original Gamble drawing and brought to life by creature designer Norman Cabrera, whose attention to detail I really admire.
Harold has been in the sun for a while, so he's kind of bleached and dirty and has bugs living inside of him.
Harold and the other monsters were all performed by actors in suits with additional digital animation done in post-production. Sometimes I think the CG helps the effects, like when they use it here to give Harold his stomach hole, but other times, as we'll see later, I think it really hurts. Tommy tries a pitchfork attack that gets turned against him instead, and the resulting damage is pretty effing horrifying to watch. He begins to sprout straw from his skin as he turns into a scarecrow, and there ain't no stopping it no matter how much straw he yanks out. I really like the effects of this transformation/kill, especially with the accompanying sound design. The next day, after being antagonized at the auto shop by Police Chief Turner, Ramon joins Stella as she goes to the Milner farm to see if Sarah's latest scary story has any truth to it. Sure enough, they find a scare Tommy hanging out, bugs all up in those eye holes. Nice! Although Stella tries to return the book to the Bellows house, Ramon finds it back in her room when he visits her that night. Together, they watch its blood-soaked auto-illocution, which writes the story of the big toe. And it's it's gonna keep on writing it no matter how many pages you rip out, Stella, so maybe try to save some trees, okay? This story's protagonist is a boy named August, meaning Khaki Scout Augie, who just found some fridge stew to eat. Jackpot? Stella calls Augie on the walkie and reads him the story they see, which is about a ghostly voice calling out, "Who took my toe?" But it's not until Augie gets a taste of that toe that the stew's out of the pot and the ghostly voices start a-calling for realsies.
Toe.
Augie stole the toe from the cooking pot. Despite his claims of couldn't be, we all know it was he, which is why Augie runs and hides in his room right now. But what are you hiding from there? Oh, that lady. You're hiding from her. Is she the one with the toe? Oh, yep, look at that. She's missing the toe. You ate her toe, dude. The toe lady was played by our old lanky standby, Javier Botet, the Spanish actor with Marfan syndrome, who played the woman in Rec, the title characters in Mama and Slender Man, the leper in both chapters of It, and plenty of other cool creatures. His amazing physical acting always makes for a memorable monster, especially when combined with this movie's detailed prosthetics and makeup work. Augie hides under his bed, and we get a solid, if simple, scene of suspense. Yeah, ending with that great jump scare there. He's pulled under by the nine-toed woman, and although he loses fingernails in his desperation to hang on, he ends up getting pulled away to the monster world beneath his bed. Oh man, does that mean he's gonna have to hang out with Maurice now? Maurice sucks. And listen, I know that some people will say this isn't actually a kill, but look at how disappeared that kid is. He's as good as dead for me, okay? Stella feels awful about Augie's disappearance and blames herself since she's the one who took Sarah's book, which, you know what? Fair. She and Ramon call on siblings Chuck and Ruth to tell them that the book is writing stories about each one of them in turn, and that in Soviet Russia,
You don't read the book. The book reads you.
Stella thinks the book's about to come after all of them, but Ruth doesn't buy it and leaves them to go to the musical she's in that night. Eager to do something to save themselves, the kids try burning the book, but no bueno. Looks like they're gonna have to attack this thing with knowledge instead of fire. Research montage, activate! Chuck discovers something while looking at old newspaper articles.
After Sarah hung herself,
Oh, actually, hold up just a minute. It's hanged. Okay, go on.
the Bellows family fired Sylvie Baptiste as she and her daughter Lulu were thought to be responsible for teaching her black magic.
Sounds like some serious Tituba bullshit went down there. The kids then learn that merely a year after Sarah hanged herself, her family members disappeared. Family members whose names matched the names in Sarah's stories, like Ephraim and Deodat, which kind of sounds like a Pokemon. Deodat. Deodat uses plot device, and it's super effective, because now the book is writing in itself again, penning a story called The Red Spot. This one is about a young girl named Ruth, meaning Chuck's sister Ruth, who's backstage for Bye Bye Birdie, fretting over a giant spider bite / zit ? That's currently colonizing her face. She runs off into the bathroom for a seriously squish nasty sequence as she prods at the nastiest face pimple I've ever seen in my life. Oh, that's right, never mind. Still, it's fucking gross, thanks to some more excellent makeup work.
It looks so real.
Yeah.
Like, I'm so tempted to just pop it.
You know what? There's a subreddit for that. We get some dermatological relief when a spider leg starts poking its way through the zit. Oh, look, he wants to say hi. Hello, world. Oh, damn, that's a lot of them. Stella, Chuck, and Ramon rush in right as Ruth gets covered in spiders. And as the boys try to save her by various means, Stella sees Sarah Bellows in the mirror. Spooky! Although they get the spiders off of her, Ruth is left pretty messed up, so she's taken away on a stretcher and eventually winds up in a mental hospital. The remaining adolescent adventurers track down the home address of Lulu Baptiste, daughter of the Bellows house servant who was fired for supposed black magic. They go to her house and meet with her, and god damn it, Stella, you just have to touch everything everywhere, don't you? She messes with the same music box that she found in Sarah's room, and turns out Lulu knows the lyrics to this ditty. Great singing there, V, but could we please get some useful information from you? Any day now. The only thing the kids learn here comes from Lulu's daughter, Claire, who tells them Sarah Bellows didn't die at home, but rather in the hospital.
But I thought everyone always said Sarah hanged herself in the house.
Oh, hey, thank you, Chuck. Way to conjugate correctly. To follow up on this lead, they head to the town's imposing hospital, which in real life was played by the abandoned St. Thomas Psychiatric Center in Ontario. It's a creepy building that urban explorers tend to enjoy, although the same can't be said for Chuck's actor, Austin Zazier.
Last night, I swear I heard doors closing, and I was scared one of us was gonna get possessed, but thanks Guillermo for making us film in an actual haunted location. It's so much fun.
Oh, and hey, looks like that guy's got a YouTube channel. So why don't you go subscribe to it and tell him Dead Meat sent you. Because they're crafty kids, they're able to sneak into the back to look for Sarah's records themselves. Chuck's too afraid to go to the records room though, because of a nightmare he's been having about a red room lately. So he splits off from the others as they press onward. Inside the old records room, Stella and Ramon move the plot along with backstory that makes Sarah Bellows a more sympathetic character.
It says here that she was suffering from achromasia albinism.
They put her in her basement because she was different.
What's more, she was committed and attended to by her own family members, who tortured her with electroshock therapy, as revealed in a wax cylinder they play on a dictaphone.
It didn't hurt the children. It didn't hurt.
Tell the truth, Sarah.
Sarah says she didn't hurt the town's children, and that it was the mercury-poisoned mill water that led to their demises instead, something the rest of the Bellows family wasn't about to admit. I guess they'd rather admit their sister, you know? Over the dictaphone, Sarah's voice begins telling a story about the present-day Chuck, a very scary concept made extra effective by some great voice acting by Sarah's actor, Kathleen Pollard.
Charlie had a dream of a red room.
Presently, Chuck is hiding from security guards amidst the hospital hallways. But with the blaring alarm bathing everything in red light, it sounds like the story Sarah's dictating to her book is about to become Chuck's nightmare. Chuck sees from afar at first a figure from his nightmare, a large pale woman who stalks towards him slowly and who has just a few too many CGI touch-ups for me to really love, you know? It's a damn shame considering they had a fully practical pale woman on set. Some unfortunate creature actor had to wear a very heavy one-piece bodysuit and mask that sound like they were a real pain in the ass to deal with.
Really is a constricting, hot, warm costume for this man to wear all day long. We'll normally leave the head off till the last second, and then obviously as soon as cut, we get him out there as quick as we can because it's extremely hot.
All that beautiful makeup and prosthetic work, and the final result looks like this? It's like the Thing prequel all over again. Thankfully, the sequence itself, just like the other set pieces in this movie, still delivers. I love how the pale woman appears in each and every hallway that Chuck tries to escape down, getting ever closer to the kid each time he sees her. Eventually, Chuck's got nowhere else to go, and he's unable to escape a 4 pale lady pileup in this hospital hallway intersection. Cornered on all sides, Chuck is given a friendly hug from the pale woman, who pulls him in close. Closer, closer, get in my belly! He does, and he's gone now, so I'll go ahead and count it as a kill. Stella and Ramon are found by the hospital staff, and as the 1968 election plays out on the TV, Police Chief Turner detains Ramon after finding out he's a draft dodger on the run. Stella elects to stay with her new friend, so they're thrown into a couple of neighboring cells. When they're left alone, Ramon tells Stella that he couldn't bring himself to answer the draft after his brother was killed overseas.
They just send you there to die.
Man, commies, evil books, everything's trying to kill this poor kid. Speaking of evil books, Turner watches as Sarah's book writes a new story called Me Ty Doty Walker, whatever the fuck that means. One power outage later, Turner's dog Trigger is sensing something evil from the chimney. Think it might be the severed head?
Me, Ty Doty Walker.
Yep, I think that's it. Good shooting, Sheriff. It's not enough to save the day, though, and pretty soon, this Thejangly Man, as Ramon calls him based on an old story, is reassembling himself piece by piece while making sounds like he's Yoda with some phlegm in his throat. He finishes coming together and kills Police Chief Turner with a quick little twist of the neck. Need hard evidence of the death, kids? Here, have this corpse. Thejangly Man starts to squeeze into Ramon's cell while calling him a coward, but Stella is able to grab the keys from Turner's corpse and free them both before the monster gets him. They escape with Turner's car keys right as Tricky Dick declares victory. I did it for checkers. Stella and Ramon decide to split up. He'll distract the Thejangly Man in the cop car while Stella heads back to the Bellows house to settle the score with Sarah and stop the stories once and for all. There's a car chase scene that ends with Thejangly Man getting smashed against the grill of a semi. But come on now, Ramon, you ain't about to stop this dude that easily, because Thejangly Man is completely collapsible and easy to transport. Get your own Thejangly Man now by calling 1-800-Thejangly Man. That's 1-800-Thejangly Man. Call now. The Thejangly Man is the movie's only monster that isn't based on an illustration from the books. Again, just like with the Pale Lady, I'm sad at how digital he looks in the movie, seeing as how on set they used a contortionist in a full-body prosthetic. I especially love that they had a mask with his head on upside down for all the shots of him crawling around like a creeper. It's very cool looking here, and unfortunately less so in the final product. Stella gets back to the Bellows mansion and cries out for Sarah to stop, and before her very eyes, the place transforms into its former state of splendor. While it takes Stella along with it to the past, the temporal transportation doesn't include the book, which is instead left inside the stanky-ass mansion of the present, where Ramon finds it. The inside of the Bellows house was a custom-built set based on the interior of the Fairbanks house used for exterior shots. Production designer David Brisbane led the team that built and dressed this set, which included finding some dope-ass Devilman wallpaper that was legit made back in the 1880s. First, they shot these scenes, with the inside of the house looking new, before taking a week to remove the grandeur and add the cobwebs.
Within a week or so, we're going to turn this whole place into a 70-years-old decrepit dump full of dust and only a few bits of wreckage of the furniture. So we're literally going to demolish the joint.
After which, they shot the earlier scenes of the kids inside the decrepit present-day house. Stella's story, called simply The Haunted House, begins to be written into Sarah's book. As Ramon looks for her in present time, Stella has no choice but to hide in the past, as the Bellows family members like Ephraim and Harold search for her. A young Lulu sees Stella and tries to help her hide under the table, even lying and taking a lashing to protect her, but eventually Stella is found by the Bellows, who drag her away screaming. The whole family delights in throwing her back into her basement bedroom and locking her inside with no dessert or lights. Ramon hears Stella screaming, even though they're in different dimensions, but he's too busy running from the Thejangly Man to figure out a way to help her. That means she's all alone when she finally sees Sarah Bellows. Or kinda. That might have been LaBelle. Fuck. But no, it really is Sarah Bellows, and she actually looks and sounds pretty goddamn creepy.
Another story just for you.
Yeah, no thanks. It takes some trans-dimensional encouragement from Ramon, but Stella finds the courage to confront Sarah and tell her that she has become the monster the rest of the town accused her of being. Stella says that even though Sarah's family sucked, she doesn't have to suck too, you know? Quit sucking, Sarah! Sarah acquiesces after Stella promises to write her story, and to prove that she's serious, she immediately gets to finger pricking and blood writing.
Sarah Bellows was innocent. She knew the truth and tried to stop them.
She was the coolest and hottest babe anyone had ever seen before. Can you please stop killing my friends now? Sarah gives Stella's biography 2 screams up, a noise which disassembles the Thejangly Man and sends Stella back to the present. Reunited and it feels so good. Stella finishes Sarah's story, which wins her first prize in a writing contest, while Ramon wins his own prize of, oh shit, that boy is going to Vietnam. Oh god, and they're still 7 years out from Saigon? Good luck, kid! The movie ends with a voiceover from Stella where she talks about the power of stories as she and her pops take a nice little road trip. Ruth is there too, having overcome her Spidey psychosis, and Stella states that they're heading out to find Chuck and Augie, who she knows is still out there. Although Stella's optimistic that she'll eventually find her friends, I'm hoping she doesn't so I can accurately include them on the count. Let's see how many corpses they join and get to the numbers. Including Chuck and Augie, who I'm sure I'll regret counting if a sequel ever gets made, we had 4 kills and scary stories to tell in the dark. All 4 of them were dudes, giving us a monochromatic blue pie chart, and with a runtime of 108 minutes, that left us with a kill on average every 27 minutes. I'll give the golden chainsaw for coolest kill to Tommy Milner. Like I said, I love the scratchy sound effects as he sprouts straw all over, and it just seems like an extra horrible way to go out. Dude's gotta chill there as a scarecrow forever. Dull machete for lamest kill will go to Police Chief Turner, since that neck snap was neither impressive nor inventive. And that's it. Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark came out in 2019, and director Andre Overdahl, who previously did The Autopsy of Jane Doe, is next doing The Long Walk, based on an early Stephen King story that I loved as a kid. I'll see you next week, but until then, I'm James A. Janice. This has been the Kill Count. Thanks a lot for watching this Kill Count. I want to thank some patrons like Caleb Todd Mason, Corey Spell, aka African Milk Vlogs, Astra Custos, Jake Fitzsimons, Zach Stallings, and Tyson Kuna, aka Thickums. How many of you read the Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark as a kid? Let me know what your experiences are. I really think it helped me get started young. Thanks everyone. Be good people.